All right, so we're starting the new year, and I couldn't think of a better way to start the new year than to talk about women's health. I'm sure you're one of us, one of us who sets those resolutions, those New Year's intentions. I've talked about this concept before, but so many of us have been indoctrinated in this idea that this is not enough. And I need to set an intention this year to make this look better. If you're listening to me on the podcast instead of watching me on the video, I'm pointing at me, I'm pointing at my body. I think that women are so very much shamed about how they look. There's such a small percentage of us that fit the ideal physical look of a woman, and only for a short period of time in our early adulthood. And so this is not fair. This is a setup for us. Let me be honest with you, sisters. This is not the way that we want to be living our lives, and certainly not in midlife, because our bodies are changing pretty significantly at this point. So I'm bringing in an expert. Mary Bushkuhl is going to talk to us about her 3-phase program, managing menopause and mastering metabolism. Now, wait, I know you might be one of my listeners that isn't a postmenopausal woman this far yet, but I'm guaranteeing you that if you are in your 40s or later, you are somewhere in that perimenopausal process, which is just the process of our hormones declining little by little over time. Some of us, it tanks fast. Some of us, it's a much more gradual process. And they say that this process can take anywhere in the realm of a decade, of 10 years time. So I think all of us need to hear this. If you're pre any of this, that's fine. This will give you the leg up. If you're in the middle of it like me, it's going to be great. She's going to give us really good stuff. And even if you're postmenopausal, she's got some information for you. And I couldn't think of a better way to start off the year than to really just dive into our health right now, what applies to us. And Mary Bushkuhl is going to teach us that. So keep listening.
I know your deep, dark secret. You don't like your life. You're a woman in midlife, and for the past 2 decades or more, you've poured yourself in to other people. You've poured yourself into your career, your family, and yet on the inside, you feel broken. And that's no way to be. I'm Dr. Natalie Marr. I'm a clinical psychologist and a life transition expert. It wasn't too long ago that I was in your shoes, waking up in my early 40s, thinking I've got 2 failed marriages and I'm a single mom for the second time in my life. And I just knew that I could do better, that I could feel better. Fortunately for you, I have about 20 years experience clinically. And so I've created a method that will help you learn to love your story. I know that the story that you're telling yourself about your life feels awful. And I know that you think that you can't change that. I assure you, you can. And when we work together, I'm going to help you to craft a different story, a story that you love, a story that makes you want to get up every single day.
Welcome back and Happy New Year. I am so excited to be here with you guys again. It's so exciting. Now, really, I'm recording this in 2023, but I'm going to have it ready for you in 2024. That's why I took my break, is so that I could really come at 2024 and make sure that I'm giving you material that's really useful. So you heard a lot from me last year and a lot of my expertise, but this year I'm going to take a little different tinge on it, and I'm going to have many more guests on here, and I'll be asking the questions that I know you want to be asking. I do. So I will bring on some of these guests like Mary Bushkuhl, who's going to be joining us today for the first part of a 3-part series on women's health. Now, she has a 3-part program, and I'm not even going to butcher it by trying to explain that to you before we meet her. We're just going to go right ahead and introduce you to Mary right now. Well, let us welcome Mary Bushkuhl to our podcast. Let me tell you a little bit about her before we get started. So Mary empowers others to architect their dream so they can live the adventure of their full potential. And her personal mission is to be a constant positive force, maintaining the highest ethical integrity and striving to always do the right thing. The strength of what Mary Bushkuhl does success lies in a deep respect for education and staying on the cutting edge of the latest research and trends in the areas of health and wellness. She is compassionate and empathetic and an outgoing personality, which allows her to get along with people from all walks of life. She also has a deep desire to help you feel better, look better, and improve your outlook on life. Her specialties include senior fitness, high school, collegiate, and adult athletes, weight loss or weight gain programs, individuals with health challenges, programming for the menopausal woman. And that is why we have invited her to be with us today. So welcome, Mary. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
I am excited, Natalie, and I hope that I can drop some major gold nuggets to help women in this part of our life.
I am so excited for this. Even in recording my intros today, I was thinking to myself, oh, this is going to be so cool to do in January, to put this out in January when everybody's kind of thinking about health. But it's really my plan in 2024 with my podcast to have experts on that can really help women in midlife. And just in our conversation last week, as we were prepping for this podcast, I know that there are already nuggets to be found. I can't wait for us to dig them up together, but I'm really excited about that. So thank you. Thank you for being on the podcast. My first question for all my guests is, tell us your story. Let us know a little bit about you and what makes Mary Mary.
Well, I'm not going to start at the very beginning, but I'm going to pretty much start toward closer to where I am now, because what we're going to be talking about today with the menopause transition, I experienced at the age of 56, 57, where my world got turned on edge. All of a sudden, we were coming out of the pandemic. So we were in 2021. And all of a sudden, my anxiety went through the roof. My energy level plummeted. My desire for anything in life, those things that I found such passion for, were gone. And I was scared. I was very afraid of what was next for me. And I have been in the fitness industry since 1985, I guess you could say. That's when I really started working with the public. And I've always had a desire to work with people, help people find ways to become healthier and better in their bodies. And all of a sudden that was gone. I would show up to work with my clients, and I had to fake it to say the least, because I had nothing. And when they were gone, all I wanted to do was find a corner in my personal training studio to just curl up in a ball and just find sleep so I could have the energy for the next person. And it was at that time, it was sometime in the summer of 2021 that Dr. Stacy T. Sims dropped her second book. Her first book was called Roar, and it was for women through life and what to do. What are the things for nutrition, for exercise, and understanding your hormones and all. But her second book was Level Up, and that book was for the menopausal woman. And that focus and reading that book was, I guess you could say, that whatever it is that it was planted in my brain, and I was like, this is my way out. This is my way through what I'm going through. And I also then signed up for her Menopause 2.0 course. And that pretty much was the trajectory for me of helping me through this transition, understanding all the things that were going on with me, and then being able to, once I started getting my footing and getting traction, turning around and being able to help women. And that's where I am now.
Thank you so much for sharing this experience, because I just love that you're hearing more about this these days, that this generation of perimenopausal and menopausal women are speaking about our experiences, which vary, I mean, widely. Like, no one person has the same menopausal experience. There's just such a wide variety of how it shows up in our life. But I think that we need to start to normalize just even speaking about it. It can sometimes hit us like a ton of bricks. And there aren't a lot of experts in the field. So Dr. Stacy Sims, clearly led you on a path that has you digging into making this a better experience for other women. And she helped you to have a better experience with it. And just so you know, listeners, I will make sure in all of the notes to these podcasts that we have links to these experts that Mary is going to share with us today, because you might want to do some of that homework for yourself as well. But thank you. Thank you for sharing with us, that experience. What I think is most fascinating to me is just how long a period of time that it can be. Like, I think the average is somewhere in a decade for the perimenopausal, the hormonal decline that happens kind of naturally, and for some of us much quicker, and for some of us maybe even longer than that. That just seems like wild to me. Like, it really does.
Yes. Yeah. And just a quick addition to my story. Back when I was 36, I'm 62 now, but back when I was 36, I started to notice little missteps. And at that time, and you're looking at 26 years ago, um, there was very little on the landscape there then. But there was a cream out, like a sweet potato cream or some kind of potato cream. And I bought it and I used it, and it actually helped with whatever the symptom was. I cannot remember whatever the symptom was. And it helped me be able to navigate through that period of time. And at that time, I even shared that information with my sister, who's younger than me, but she wasn't having any kind of menopause or any kind of problems or missteps or anything like that. But she had a friend, and that friend, I mean, that lotion, that cream, whatever you want to call it, really helped her. And she went off on a trajectory like you wouldn't believe. Uh, but that was 26 years ago. And now, I mean, even where I am now and in my story, just 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, it wasn't really being talked about that much. And so now it just seems like there are podcasts. Marketers are starting to clue in and start marketing all kinds of things to women in the menopause transition. And I do want to caution you, beware. Be aware of what's out there, and know that there is not one solution. And when we go through this today, you're going to find out that, oh my gosh, the what I go through is completely different from what Dr. Natalie is going through. So understanding what's out there for you to navigate. And my biggest message is be curious. Don't don't buy into one thing. Be curious.
Oh, I love that. Listeners, don't you hear my voice in that? Like, I talk about being curious all the time, in any part of this transition, because it's such a beautiful way to show up with compassionate self-awareness, right? If we just stay curious about it, we're not judging ourselves. We're not, making up ideas about what's right and what's not right. We're just staying curious and learning more, and collecting data points, which some of them are symptoms, and some of them are the data that we're seeing out in the world to help us with those symptoms. So I love that motto, stay curious. I think that's it matches what we do here on Learn to Love Your Story very well. Well, Mary, you have this great program. You call it Managing Menopause and Mastering Metabolism. And I have invited you here onto the podcast to really help walk us through your three-prong approach within that program, or three-phased approach within that program. So let's get to it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about why you created this? And today, because we're going to split this up into three parts, today we'll kind of jump into the first phase of that.
Okay. First of all, I've kind of changed the name. It is Managing Menopause and Optimizing Metabolism, because we can never master metabolism because of all the little intricacies that go with metabolism. But at least I can give you an idea of how to optimize that. So the three parts, I usually start with nutrition, because as women, we are always curious about nutrition. Okay, how can I make my nutrition better? Why is this not working for me anymore? So on and so forth. And then the second part is your symptoms and understanding what all those symptoms are. And then the third part is exercise, and what do you need to do in this time in your life with exercise. And it's completely different than what you and I have been taught from the 80s up until pretty much a couple of years ago. And so the shift is being made, and women are not totally on board, but and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But nutrition is the first thing I wanted to talk about. Do you want me to dive in, or would you like to ask?
Yeah, dive in. Well, and my question first is there a reason for that? Is there a reason that's the foundation in your program, is to start with nutrition and then build these other pieces on top of it? Because I think that, again, like you're saying, like in the last 2 years, a lot of the science has started to pull us in a different direction and understand our bodies a little bit better as women. By the way, listeners, if you don't know this, but science and science research often would rule women out as participants in research, because they didn't like that we had hormones, they didn't like that we were childbearing, and they didn't like that we were menopausing, and that would somehow compromise the study. And so a lot of the science for medical research was done on males. And so it's almost like it doesn't apply to us. It's almost like we're a different species. And how we respond as women is very different to all sorts of things. And so in the last couple of years, we're getting a little bit better with this. But I'm just curious, Mary, for you, why was it nutrition that should be kind of ground zero for this?
Well, let me tell you a little bit about what goes on, and then why nutrition is so important. Our biggest body composition changes happen in the 3 to 4 years before menopause. So like you were saying, Dr. Natalie, that this could be a 10-year journey that you're taking. So you really don't know when you're going to hit menopause. It's not a magic age. And so understanding why nutrition needs to start being ramped and changed as of age 40 is so important. But we have, as our estrogen starts to withdraw from our body, we have decreased insulin sensitivity, which increases our blood glucose circulating in our body. So that's another thing. There's also, with that estrogen withdrawing, our bone architecture changes. In other words, we are more susceptible to osteoporosis at this time, because the bone is just the calcium is being sucked out of the body. We have what is called a reduced anabolic stimulus. And anabolic means building. In other words, our muscle building capability just goes down. It just goes down. And so we are pushed into what is called a catabolic state, which is our muscles start breaking down faster, and we start losing, we can lose up to 3% of our body, our muscle mass in a year, compared to after age 30, we start losing 1% a year. But that sweet spot, we can be losing 3% or 3 to 5%. So it's scary because all of a sudden you wake up one day and you go, what just happened? I have no muscle
I
anymore.
know. What is this going on right here? I don't understand this.
That's right. Also, when estrogen withdraws from the body, we have an increase in our baseline cortisol. And cortisol is our stress hormone, and not knowing or not being able to control that or manage the cortisol starts throwing our body into another state of, putting on that belly fat. And then also with estrogen, there's so many wonderful things that happen with the withdrawal of estrogen, but our gut microbiome diversity changes. So you'll start to notice things with your digestive system. And if you're not maintaining a healthy gut, then things are going to start becoming compromised. So the reason why I start with nutrition is because women are like, okay, I can start here. This I can take actionable steps. This is a doable thing. It might not be easy, but it's doable. So the ADA recommends that we take in anywhere from 0.8 to 1.1 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And for the menopausal women, that is dangerous. In other words, that is so low, we are not giving ourselves the building blocks to maintain muscle mass.
That's crazy though. I mean, just think about that. Like I'm 165 pounds, I think. So what you're saying is, even if I was doing 160, 70 milligrams a day, I'm below because I'm 47 and I should be augmenting that. That's huge.
Yes. So now you're 100, what did you say, 167 pounds? 165 pounds. Now, if you look at that kilogram wise, that's different. Kilograms is 2.2 pounds per kilogram of body weight. So pretty much you're looking at what? 80 just under 80 kilograms. So 70 something, 74, 75 kilograms is what you weigh. And so you're being told that you should be taking in somewhere around 75 grams of protein a day. Well, a woman who's transitioning, or a woman 40 and older, and from this point forward in your life, you've got to change how you look at protein. Protein should be your number one concern. Now you should be taking in anywhere from 1.7 to 2.3 grams per kilogram of body weight. So I weigh 112 pounds. I should be taking in, now just based on that, I go, okay, so I should be taking in at the very least 112 grams of protein a day. And at the most, especially on days where I'm working out, I should be taking in closer to 140 grams. And you think about that, you're like, wow, that's a lot of protein. But if you divide it out during your day and take, like with breakfast, you focus on getting 30 to 40 grams, lunch getting 30 to 40 grams, dinner getting 30 to 40 grams. I'm hitting all of those, but then, throwing in those snacks and always looking at where can I get the most bang for my buck on the protein side. Once you have your protein on your plate, then we start filling everything in. But the biggest thing, I heard a podcast recently where they were talking with a researcher. She's, I can't even remember the university she's at, but she's doing all this research on women in menopause. And she's only in her maybe late 20s. And she already knows that she needs more protein now than she's ever needed. And she used to be a volleyball player at the collegiate level. So she's like 6'2", 190, 180, 190 pounds. She said, eating protein every day is a full-time job for me.
It is a full-time job. Like I have a 20-year-old boy who does weightlifting, and he and I were having a conversation about how much protein intake he tries to stay on top of. And I'm like, I I need to do about the same right now. Is when I look at the science, like you're 6 feet tall and like 200 pounds, but like seriously, if I'm going to continue to have muscle and not lose or atrophy my muscle, I need to be taking in a lot of protein. And I have never thought about it that way, which is one of the things that as you're talking, Mary, that I'm hearing you say is, one of the things that I think women are in this age range of somewhere between 35, 65, where you're in the pre, peri, menopausal and postmenopausal phases, is that what we've done so far in our life, it just won't apply now. It doesn't mean what we did didn't work when it was working. It means that we have a different body chemistry and a different makeup. And so different rules will apply. So what we've done will not work anymore. And it's not to, say that what you've done isn't great stuff. It was and had been during that body chemistry and that body framework, but now won't work. So we have to shift it. That's just the reality of it.
Right. Yes. The other thing is most women have always been diet conscious. Like, okay, I need to lose weight, so I'm going to cut my calories. In this time of our life, we need the calories. What I do is when I teach this course, I teach women how to bring protein, carbohydrates. Oh my God, what a horrible word! But carbohydrates and fats, and how to put that onto your plate, because carbohydrates are not your enemy. And that's one of the biggest things, the hardest things for me to get through to women, because they're like, oh, I've got to cut carbs because carbs make me fat. And it's like, no, they help give you energy. so, but one of the things in any time in life is most women are calorie deficient or energy deficient.
I like how you're saying that energy deficient. That resonates for me because I think that calorie and diet consciousness kind of is all part of that programming and conditioning that we were taught about our weight and our, beauty kind of being our value in the world. But energy deficient makes sense to me, like, because energy comes from all the macronutrients and the micronutrients too. And it shifts our perspective. Like, I need to talk about the energy in, energy out principle instead of the calorie in, calorie out. I'm not a ledger, I'm a chemistry set. And so energetically, I think I need to be thinking about energy in. I like that.
And most women, and I just go with what has been researched and then what my people are saying. And like my basal metabolic rate, the amount of calories my body needs just to survive a day without anything on top of that, just if I were to be in a vegetable state, I need to be taking in somewhere around 1,150 calories a day for my tiny body. And most women are told, okay, we're going to put you on a 1,200 calorie a day diet. And that is usually below what your body needs just to survive. And so what I usually have women do is there are ways that you can have your body composition measured. And one of the easiest ways, if you have the ability within your community to find what is called an in-body scan. And that gives you, how much muscle I have on my body, how much fat, what is water weight. And then it also gives you that beautiful little number, which is your basal metabolic rate. And what I usually tell women is that, okay, we have that basal metabolic rate. And depending on your activity, exercise, and eating habits, that number is going to go up above and beyond. Like for me, okay, I already told you what my basal metabolic rate is, but I'm always trying to get in somewhere between 17 to 2,000 calories a day. A lot of women would be like, oh my God, I'd be blowing up or something, but you're not. I'm feeding my body what it needs in order to function, in order to um, complete all the functions it needs just to stay alive, to be able to have the caloric intake or the energy intake to do my job, and then exercise on top of that. And when you eat protein, when you eat fibrous foods, it takes a lot of calories just to break those down. So you have to, you want to know that calorie restriction or energy restriction at this time in our life is a big no-no, because our body is already breaking down, and to we want to provide, we want to give, we want to support our bodies at this time. And by depriving it, you're only going to go, your decline is only going to increase. It's going to be a slippery slope.
Yep. I'm really getting the impression then that part of the premise of having nutrition be on the ground floor of your program is we have to kind of nurture the soil in which you're going to plant other things on top of it. Like we'll talk about symptoms and some of the things you can do that in the second phase, but you really need to nurture the body and make sure that there is an energy store or an energy source on a regular basis in which we do that work, essentially. Yeah. Gosh, that's fascinating.
Yes. And another thing, the more that you nourish your body in that you provide it with the good protein, you provide it with the carbohydrates that it needs. And carbohydrates are your vegetables, your fruits, your whole grains, and the things that I try to encourage women to minimize. Notice how I say minimize, not eliminate, but minimize are those processed foods. And those usually are your higher carbohydrates, simple sugar, simple carbohydrates, which when you consume those, immediately your blood sugar shoots through the roof. And so what we're trying to do is find nutrition that's going to help you keep your blood sugar level instead of having spikes and then below.
All right. So I'm interrupting this podcast for one reason only. Let me just ask this question. Are you feeling stuck? Are you feeling kind of blah about your life? You're a woman in midlife and life is pretty good. I mean, you've got your stuff together. You've ticked all the boxes, but you just don't feel like you're stepping into your prime in the way that you'd really like to. And you certainly don't want to go down the road of having a midlife crisis in order to figure all of this out. So if that's you, then my 20-week group coaching program is for you. And guess what? I'm opening it up in 2024. So that's why I'm interrupting this podcast today, because I want to personally invite you to participate in this with me. That's right. Another 20-week group coaching program. Now, 20 weeks seems like a big commitment. I get it. But I want you to know it's just once a week that we're meeting all together. And then there's the curriculum that's online that you do on your own time. And I spread it out over 20 weeks because I really want you to see change in your life. Now, here's the thing. It's pretty easy to find out more information about this. And guess what? You get to hear it from me, straight from me. All I want you to do is go over to learntoloveyourstory.com right now and click on Work With Me. And then you can set up a time to talk directly with me. I'm going to answer any of your questions, walk through what this program can give you, and really help you understand that I'm here to help you in 2024. I want you to reach your goals. I want you to really design the life that you want to be living. That is my passion. And it's what the 20-week program does. Now, doesn't that sound like something that you want to be doing? Now remember, go to learntoloveyourstory.com right now, and you too can sign up for your complimentary call with me. All you have to do is click on work with me and book that complimentary call, or you can head over to resources and read a little bit more about the various programs that I have. I can't wait to have you be part of this in 2024. So happy New Year to you, and let's get you into that centered life thriving.
Another big thing is to also work on improving your gut microbiome, because the healthier your gut is, the better you're going to be able to digest the food and use the energy for the processes that your body needs. So that's huge. A lot of women may not realize it, but sometimes it's just as simple as taking a probiotic. And in my course, I also talk about how you can get those probiotics from foods, how to get your prebiotics from foods, and so you eventually can get to the point where you don't need those supplements, but sometimes you need that boost right away just to get going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. But what you're talking about, again, that microbiome is so essential to get, like, extracting the nutrition essentially from the foods that you're eating. And so if you start in a place with poor microbiome, environment in your gut, which is possible if we're eating the average American diet, right? You would need to start with adding extra with your supplements. But as you start to grow better microbiome and have a better environment in your gut, well, then, yeah, you can, food is our fuel, and it's our medicine in that regard. Mm-hmm.
Correct. I agree totally. Another thing that women, especially as you start going through this change, all of a sudden you start, it seems like overnight, and I've heard this from women, overnight I gained 30 pounds. It's all right here in my waist. What the heck just happened? And there's a little bell or alarm that goes off that goes, uh-oh, okay, I put on weight, so I got to exercise more and I've got to eat less. And that's the biggest no-no at this time in our lives. And a lot of women start to look at, okay, the ketogenic diet worked for me before. I'm going to go try that again. Or fasting worked for me before. I'm going to do that again. And those are the kinds of things that actually go against what our body needs at this time. So if you are a keto friendly kind of, I love the ketogenic diet. Let's take a step back, because all the research that's been done on the ketogenic diet has been on men and I will say, and on women who were over the age of 60, who were obese and sedentary. So it was never done on women who were active or even within that 40 to 60 age group. So be aware of, okay, who were the subjects of these studies? And you'll find that, again, like you said in your introduction, it's been men. And then the other thing is fasting. A lot of women think, well, golly, I'm going to fast because then I won't eat as much. I encourage you, if you want to fast, if you want to do like a 12-hour fast, start at 6 p.m. and go to 6 a.m. because it is first thing in the morning where we really need our nutrition. Because at night when you're sleeping, your body is breaking down. You haven't given it any kind of nourishment for hours. So the big thing is, if you don't eat breakfast, let's find a way to get those nutrients in you. If you say, I can't eat breakfast. Well, can you drink your breakfast? Can yeah, drink a protein shake. And it doesn't have to be like, I have at some time in the morning, I have a yogurt fruit protein powder shake. And that and of course milk. I mean, real milk, not almond milk, but my body can handle dairy. And that's completely, that's another subject. But, that right there is almost 30 grams of protein that I just hit. And my body just goes, oh, thank you. Thank you. So, so if you wanna fast, because you'll see this on social media, you'll get inundated with emails talking about, okay, this intermittent fasting, this is what you need to do, and it is important that your body take a fast so that your pancreas gets to rest, because this constant eating actually does worse for your pancreas than having to fast. But look at how your body responds at this time in your life. And most women would rather eat late into the night and then skip breakfast and wait until 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock to eat lunch. And when is your most productive time of day? It's usually between 8 and 12, 8 and 1 o'clock, because after that, it's like, okay, energy.
Yeah, energy dive. Well, I think this is interesting though, because I have done a little bit of research in fasting and intermittent fasting for my own personal reasons. And it's reduced inflammation. It's reduced one of my symptoms, which was I had a lot of joint pain, almost like I was feeling arthritic as I'm in this perimenopausal phase. And it really has the shortened eating window. So it's really that intermittent fasting. The 16-8 is what I usually try to aim for, but sometimes I'm a little bit over that and sometimes I'm a little bit under that, depends on the day, which is fine too, because I think that stressing your system and making it guess when you're going to eat next is not a totally bad thing for your health either, as long as you're nutritionally getting what you need. But tell us a little bit more about that. So how do we keep reducing inflammation in the body, since we know that inflammation is tied to, all sorts of things. It's tied to mental health disorders as well as physical health issues. So speak a little bit more about that.
Well, the best thing to do is find a anti-inflammatory kind of diet, which is very easy. It's almost like the Mediterranean diet. It's pretty much the Mediterranean diet, because you're eating lean meats, you're eating a lot of vegetables and fruits, your whole grains, you're eliminating or minimizing the amount of highly processed foods, sugars, trying to minimize the amount of sugar that you take in, and all of those things, because one of the symptoms, like what you were talking about, is menopause arthritis. You think you have arthritis because your joints are aching all the time. And if you just shift, yeah, if you just shift your diet or your nutrition, I like nutrition better. If you shift your nutrition to more on the side of I'm going to say Mediterranean diet, then you're going to notice that the inflammation reduces. You start to have less swelling, you have less achiness in the joints, and you usually, this time of year, if you've been on like you, Dr. Natalie, if you have been really good and your joint health, I mean, you feel really great. Oh, but now all these great Christmas treats are here.
Oh, the Christmas goodies are out. The pumpkin pie has already begun. It's kind of a slow roll into the not so great things in December.
So you will notice, though, if you start to consume, you're like, oh, I'm just going to have a cookie today. But you'll start to notice that, oh, my achiness is back.
Almost instantly. I notice it within hours of eating high sugar foods, high gluten foods. It's almost instant for me.
Right. Yes. And so that's, becoming more aware, we said in the beginning, being curious about how your body's feeling with the consumption of whatever nutrient that you're taking in. So that's huge. The other thing, before we get off of nutrition, is supplementation.
Yeah, say more about that, because I know that people are always looking for good information on what are the supplements I should be trying, and how do I know what's good and not good, and that kind of a thing.
Well, the it's a multi-billion dollar industry. And so a lot of these nutrients that, or a lot of these supplements that you are buying may not even have what you're supposed to be, what it says on the label that it has. And it's not regulated by the FDA. So um, so that's what keeps the cost to a minimum. But then again, you've got to also look at, am I getting what I'm supposed to be getting? But the supplements, and you've heard this, the supplements I recommend is D3, because a lot of us don't get, depending on where you're living in the United States and Canada, you may not get the vitamin D from sunshine, and so, or sunlight. So I mean, like, I live in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and the amount of D3 out there, even though I may go out and I might spend every day outside for, up to 30 minutes, I'm not getting the D3 that I need. So that one is definitely one to supplement. Another one is omega-3. And the omega-3, unless you're eating fish pretty much 3 or more times a week, you do need that omega-3. And omega-3 is definitely helps with inflammation as well. So that's big. The other one, and I've been taking magnesium for years. I mean, 15 plus years. But I worked with a registered dietitian, a sports dietitian, who changed when I took my magnesium and what kind that I took, because I needed it for sleep, to help me calm down, help my body and my brain to calm down. So if you are looking for magnesium, there's so many different ways that you can, that are so many different magnesium supplements out there. So finding the right one, and if you can, working with either a registered dietitian or a nutritionist who can help you figure out which one you're supposed to be on. So that, and also one of the biggest benefits of magnesium is it, and you can delete this if you want to, Dr. Natalie, but it helps you poop better.
No, I think that no, because I think good pooping is huge. Like, it's a huge symptom when we're this constipated all the time, of not just our physical health, but our emotional wellness, because anxiety, depression also cause those. I mean, we constrict ourselves when we're feeling emotionally bereft. So that is such a good indicator or barometer of our health, is whether or not we're having a good poop at least once a day, if not more, where we actually feel like we evacuate our body and are like ready to go afterwards. And so if you're not doing that, yes, if you're not doing that, there is something amiss in multiple ways in your body. And so I like using magnesium for that reason as well.
Detox. Now, there are other supplements that you might be encouraged to take, but sometimes you don't need those because you're getting them from your foods. One supplement that there are a couple more supplements that I'm taking just for my own personal reasons. One is creatine, and creatine has been researched so much, mainly for muscle building. And your son most probably is taking creatine. He's loading, unloading, loading, unloading.
Yeah, he does.
But for women in this state, because when estrogen starts to withdraw, brain health and brain function changes. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But in my family, dementia and Alzheimer's are prevalent. And creatine helps the body, or helps the brain with memory, focus, because focus is another big thing. I mean, memory. I mean, I'm glad I haven't gone silent at one point, going, where was I? Type thing. Those are big things. That's the main reason I take creatine is for my brain health.
That's interesting. I've never heard anybody say that they use it for that purpose. That's interesting. I'd love to read some articles that you would recommend for me, because I am all about kind of learning a little bit more about how do we protect the neurology within our body, knowing that, psychologically it's the container in which that stuff gets taken care of. Mm-hmm.
Send you at least one of those articles, but there, and I'll also send you a link to the sports dietitian that I work with, her podcast on creatine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And then the other one, and I don't know if it helps me or not, but I take it, and that's collagen. I mean, and there are different types of collagen, but collagen, if you're a vegan, there are no options for collagen because collagen is from an animal source. But at this time of year, this is great. You can get your collagen if you take your turkey carcass, if you haven't thrown it out yet, and you make broth. That broth has collagen in it, and that's a natural source of getting it. But otherwise, there are.
Is most bone broth a natural source of collagen? Mm.
Yes, and also gelatin. Gelatin is also, but who wants to drink gelatin? and that jello that you have to eat the whole damn thing if you. The only other thing I want to talk about is nutrient timing, and most women. Again, I mean, you do a 16-hour fast and an 8-hour eating window. And making sure that you time your nutrition to meet the needs of the demands that you are putting on your body. Like in your line of work, cerebral is where you are mostly. You need to feed your brain. Your brain needs that sugar to, and no, I'm not talking eating candy bars all day, but your brain does need that sugar to continue to put out all the concentrate, focus, memory, being able to multitask, because we as women, we do a lot better at multitasking than men. Men get lost after one. They have one ball in the air and that's all they can handle. It seems like, but women, we have a tendency to be able to handle more balls in the air, though as we get older, it's the one ball is a lot more important than the other ones that are being thrown around up there. But nutrient timing is very important. So if you eat let's say that your eating window starts at 6 a.m. and you eat at 6 a.m. and you go, well, I'm not going to eat again until noon. There is every 3 to 4 hours, you should be consuming something, because especially your brain burns 20% of the caloric output of the body. So if you're taking in 2,000 calories a day, 400 of those calories have to help your brain. And that's for the average person. Then you, being cerebral, most probably are burning through a lot more calories in your brain than somebody who is not. Yeah. So that's why if you're sitting at your computer and you're typing away and you're going and you're like, no, 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 and all of a sudden you go, God, I'm starving. What's going on? I haven't done a damn thing. I've just been sitting in front of the computer. Your brain's going, hello, it's time. Yeah. So making sure that you are meeting the demands, the energy demands of your body and your brain throughout the day, so that you're not going, okay, I'm only going to eat at 6 a.m., at 12 noon, and then I'm going to eat at 4 p.m. because that's my 8-hour window. You've got to find times, especially like, let's say you eat at 6 a.m. and you exercise at 11. Let's say that's 5 hours from the time that you eat to the time that you exercise. So maybe an hour before you exercise, you want to look at providing the nutrition for the exercise that you're going to be doing. That doesn't mean you eat a full meal. You need, somewhere between 150 to 250 calories. Try to make it more protein and carbohydrates, less fat, so that the fat doesn't interfere with causing GI distress if you're working, especially if you're doing some kind of cardio. So always look at, okay, my nutrition, and the reason why I'm timing my nutrition is to provide the support that my body needs and the demands that my body has. So it's no longer okay, I'm depriving my body of this so that I lose weight. It's like I'm providing my body this in order for it to work at its best. It's like you're a sports car. If you put regular unleaded in it, it's not going to give you the performance it wants. But if you give your sports car what it needs, which is that high caliber fuel, then it's not going to let you down.
So I hear that. This is how we have to think about it. We got to shift our focus. And I just want to reiterate that the other thing that I learned from what you're telling us is that it's going to look a lot different in this age range than it ever did before. And it doesn't mean what we did before wasn't the right thing to be doing. It was just the right thing to be doing for that phase in our life. And this phase has different demands and different requirements. And so we need to be educating ourselves on how much protein intake we need, what kind of supplements would be most useful to us, and be thinking about what's the optimal energy intake that I need for what output that I'm doing if I want to show up the best in my life. I love it. Love it. All right, listeners, I hope that you took something from this. Definitely, because that was a whole mouthful. It was a whole lesson full of things. And Mary, you do have a program that they can follow. You do have an online course and you have something that's coming up, correct?
Correct. And the course actually this next 6 week is going to be starting January 2nd. So maybe if you could drop at least the first one before January 2nd.
A little bit early. I think this could be done.
It's completely online. So you do not have to be in person. You don't have to be living in Cheyenne, Wyoming. But every week you will be receiving emails of pertinent information. But every Tuesday, 12:30 Mountain Time, so you'd have to figure out where you are in the world. But we will be meeting live, and I will be presenting on nutrition. I will be presenting a PowerPoint on all the things that you are about to learn. Because January 2nd being the first day, you aren't going to have any information, but you'll be giving information of what is going to be required of you, not required, but things to think about, things to take action on and see if it's going to work for you. And so but every Tuesday we will be meeting. And the first Tuesday, of course, is going to be a nutrition presentation. The second Tuesday is going to be pretty much a support kind of thing, because we all have our stories. We all need our support. We don't want to remain silent anymore. And there might be somebody in the community who has gone through the same thing and has found something that has worked for her. Maybe it'll work for you. So that's the second week. And then we'll talk about
the rest of it when you meet with us later. Yeah. So I hope that what Mary Bushkuhl has shared with us today is going to be useful to you as you are embarking on your centered life thriving. Because I am a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Minnesota, I have to make sure at the end of each of these episodes that I give you the disclaimer that none of the material that I talk about in these podcasts is meant to replace any kind of therapy or formal medical or mental health treatment. And in fact, anything that I offer on my website, my coaching programs, any kind of psychoeducational materials that I release are not a replacement for that level of care. So just take that into account when you listen. This is information for you, and hopefully you find it of value, both as an educational tool and for your entertainment. And I also want to mention that if anyone you know is in a mental health crisis, needs additional help, I always include these two crisis resources. They're available to anybody. Pick up the phone and dial 888 for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And you can always visit their website at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Additionally, there's actually a crisis text line. So if you're not somebody that likes to pick up the phone, then please text 741-741 to the crisis text line. And you can find them online at crisistextline.org. Thank you for listening to my podcast, and I hope that you like and follow me wherever you get your podcasts, and maybe consider leaving me a review. It always helps me to keep this podcast relevant when I know what you want to hear about.